Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Dougherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Dougherty. First of all, thank you all so much for helping us reach this milestone. It's been an incredible ride over the past 2 years. To celebrate, we're going to go through the previous 99 episodes to relive some of our favorite moments. We'll not only be hearing from regular co-hosts Sarah Says and Marisa from Chicago, because we've had so many great members of the community on the show, we'll hear from many different voices. Before we get started, we're in the final days of 2022, and we still need some help reaching our goal of 500 subscribers to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Dougherty YouTube channel. Not only can you go back and listen to all of these past episodes of the podcast, but there's so many videos from Walt Disney World and many other destinations. For much of November and all of December, I've been focused on bringing you the different holiday offerings at WDW. We saw all 4 theme parks, most of the resorts, and Disney Springs. We also have so much planned for 2023 on the YouTube channel that you won't want to miss. I'm going to be doing a cross-state road trip very soon where I'll stop at some interesting destinations along the way for the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. I have passes to Busch Gardens, Tampa, after-hours events at Magic Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios, at least 2 Run Disney events, Park Pass reservations for the first day of Epcot's International Festival of the Arts, Park Pass reservations for the 25th anniversary celebration for Disney's Animal Kingdom, and I'm planning on visiting Kennedy Space Center for the 3rd time. Please subscribe to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Dougherty YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss anything. Speaking of Kennedy Space Center, I'm going to kick off the 100th episode celebration with a conversation I had a little under a year ago with Jeff from the blog Magical Pursuit. Not only does Jeff document his quest to accomplish everything on Walt Disney World property, but he is also a Walt Disney World cast member. The two of us are also very interested in the history of space travel, and we went to Kennedy Space Center. This conversation took place on episode 49, which aired on January 6th of 2022. Right now, hear what Jeff thought about seeing the Space Shuttle Atlantis in person.
One of the things they talked about in the videos was just going to space is a difficult thing. Returning from space is even harder. And for a million reasons, but one of them is heat. And just the re-entry is just so stressful on anything. To think that you're going to reuse it is just like mind-blowing. It was a revolutionary idea. I mean, picture the one-time use microwavable plate that comes with a TV dinner, and okay, now we need to use it 700 more times. And just the what has to go into it. And that was the thing that blew me away when I first got to see the ship itself. Was it looked like a puzzle, because the outside is tiny. I mean, I don't want to say tiny, but like, a 3x5 card sized plate of material to, vent heat away and all of that insulation, let's say. And it's covered the entire outside of the ship. And I mean, obviously there's a reason. It's easy to replace a tiny thing than it is to replace the whole outer shell of the ship. But to see that in your face, and as a kid growing up and seeing the shuttle, and I didn't even know there was multiple shuttles, let alone this one. I never heard the name Atlantis before. So to know that they retired them after a while, and it always looked like the same white ship with black on the outside and an American flag on the side. Like that's what the shuttle was to me. So to see it there and to see how textured it was, to me, it always looked like an airplane. It always looked smooth, like just one sheet of smooth metal across the side. And to see the texture of it, and then to know that each individual piece of texture mattered, to know that it was there for a reason. Because if it wasn't there, the thing wouldn't fly, the thing wouldn't come back, the thing wouldn't take off, whatever reason it had. Just to know that the level of engineering know-how that went into this is just incredible.
And each of those little 3x5 sections had an individual serial number on the outside because they're not worried about the aesthetic of this. They want to be able to look at anything they need to change, be able to read right off what they need to go get in the other room and replace it. And that was so cool because, like you said, when you would see it on television, it just looked like one big ship. It didn't look almost like a Lego ship made with all these little different sections, but each one had its own serial number on it, and you could read that there were serial numbers on them, and all of that meant something to someone somewhere. There was a file that listed each and every one where that person could get a new one if it needed to be replaced, and that's the level of detail that you just have to admire.
And that is required for the job that ship has to do. I mean, that is a very expensive device. It is carrying human lives. It has to work. And not just, oh, I need a little air in my tires has to work. It has to function perfectly or there's disaster. And we've seen the disaster, and there's one of the wildest, just punch you in the gut experiences was there and seeing. I'll let you take over.
So when you see the space shuttle Atlantis, you walk into the room at the very top of this large building. And then the exhibit continues as you're walking down to the bottom, and you're under Atlantis at this point. And just back off in a corner, there is a tribute to the Challenger. And people about my age, this was the first major news event I remember. I remember having like nightmares where I thought I was seeing it happen in the sky. You know, because when you're a kid and you don't 100% put these things into context or whatever. Like, I remember the Challenger exploding, and you see items much like the Apollo 1 display that Jeff was talking about earlier from the astronauts who went up in the Challenger, and then you come around the bend and you turn right, and there is a piece of the Challenger. It is so emotional for somebody who remembers it the way I remember it. That was sort of when this aura of space travel really, obviously no pun intended, and maybe this isn't the right wordage, but came crashing to the ground. Like, it was so inspiring to go into space, and then this happened, and all of a sudden you really put into perspective how dangerous it is to try to go to space. And seeing that piece of the Challenger was a punch in the gut. Exactly like you said, a punch in the gut.
It's such a interesting contrast. We came from the Saturn V, which was this gigantic rocket. It was a fuel tank engine and a tiny space for these people to sit. They were sitting under tons and tons of rocket fuel and went to the moon. And it was just the most, one of the most amazing human achievements, but certainly one of the most absolute, almost pure American achievements. Just, you felt proud to be part of a country that was able to do this. You didn't terribly grasp that these were just three men sitting on top of tons of rocket fuel. It was just, they went up and they did it, and go us and go them, yay. And then you see Challenger and what happens when one tiny thing goes wrong or one little thing goes wrong. And it puts into perspective how fragile all of it is, because it's not a guarantee anymore that you're going to go up, you're going to go do the mission, you're going to accomplish it, and you're going to come home and you're going to be loved by the world. It's not that. It is a very dangerous, it's a very serious task that these people sign up for.
Hear that entire conversation on episodes 48 and 49, which originally aired on December 30th, 2021 and January 6th, 2022. As I mentioned earlier, I'm planning on a return visit to Kennedy Space Center next month to show you so much more from my favorite non-theme park attraction in Florida. Jeff is such a great friend, and my favorite thing about this podcast is the friendships I've developed or enhanced by having this show. In August of 2021, I met one of my best friends in person for the first time. Sarah Says had been serving as one of the main co-hosts for a few months before we decided to meet up at Disneyland. This was just a few weeks after out-of-state residents were permitted to return to Disneyland. This was Sarah's first time in a Disney theme park since the world changed in March of 2020. She certainly had emotions walking into Walt's original park again after all of that uncertainty.
Yeah, so it was emotional. I'm not going to lie, it was a little weird because there was no line to get in, which I was not expecting. I mean, I got there at about like 3:00 p.m., 3:30-ish, but it was really exciting. I was kind of nervous. I started to get more choked up as I went under the bridge, the railway bridge, and turned onto Main Street. And as I started walking down, you have the whole, like, what's that section called when you first walk in? The
Town Square.
Yeah, the Town Square, before you even get to the street where you can see the castle. And where I really kind of started to feel like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, get really excited, is I hit it right at a time that the marching band came out. So I hadn't even gone down Main Street yet. And I have a video, because I was videoing it as I went in, because I'm like, okay, I have to remember this moment from when I walked in. And I turn, and right by Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, there's an opening, and they start coming out. Well, then they turn, they go around Town Square and down the street. So I have a video of them and like watching them come out and then go down Main Street, and then there's the castle, like right there. Oh my God, it was a magical experience.
You can hear all about Sarah's return to Disneyland in episode 32, which aired on September 9th of 2021. We don't just talk about Walt Disney World, however. The past 2 years have been loaded with news from Universal Orlando Resort, including the opening of Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure in 2021. My friend Christina met up with me in the park immediately following her annual pass holder preview of the very popular attraction to give her impressions of it. Initially, Christina was worried about the ride only having a lap bar and not a harness.
Yeah, so I was very worried that I would feel overexposed being on this ride without the security of the shoulder bar like you have on every other ride that has an inversion. And this one has quite a few inversions. But actually, from the moment that they strapped me in, I felt very secure, very snug in my little seat. It has a place to hold on. And just from the moment it launches, you're going so fast that your body just doesn't have an opportunity to move anywhere.
And this is a ride that you do get some air every once in a while. How did you feel with that? Was it thrilling without being scary? Was it just you didn't even have enough time to think about it? Like, how was that?
I'm going to tell you that I really didn't have a lot of time to think about it. There was only one moment that I really felt like we came out of our seats. There's a moment where you twist over the water and it sort of hangs you there for a minute, and I have to say that was probably my favorite part, and it was one of the things I was most afraid of. So really everything that I was scared of on the ride turned out to be not a big deal. And I was nervous to go on the ride for days beforehand, so that's really saying something. And I'm not a roller coaster enthusiast by any means. I try to go on them all at least once, but there are many that I've got off of and said, nope, that's the last time for that.
So basically, don't be afraid of this. Don't be a chicken and leave after the queue. However, the queue is incredible.
Yes.
Talk about the queue a little bit, especially when you're watching the other cars launch. That is my favorite part, at least.
Yes, it was a lot of fun watching the other cars launch. The animatronic raptors are really cool. I mean, honestly, I don't want to give too much away of any part of the ride, really. I would say that I worked myself up for 2 days in advance for no reason, because it really is one of the funnest things that of any of the roller coasters in all of Orlando. It was so fun, so fun. I just wish I could do it again because I didn't pay enough attention to some of the theming elements on the ride.
Christina's review of Velocicoaster was a part of episode 14, which aired originally on May 6th of 2021. Later that month, on May 27th, my other regular co-host, Marisa from Chicago, was on for episode 17. I was still working as a travel agent at the time, and Disney had gifted me a $50 dining gift card that had an expiration date. To try to spend the whole thing before it could go to waste, Marisa joined me for a quick lunch at my favorite Walt Disney World restaurant, Tiffin's. Here's our review.
It was incredible. Walking in, you could really see how much care had been put into every single detail of the restaurant's design. I mean, no matter where you looked, you're looking at something that has such significance to the restaurant and the theme park as a whole. It was phenomenal. I don't think I've ever been in a restaurant that has had so much precision and care put into just the theme and how it looks and what you're looking at as you're dining.
This was my third trip to Tiffin's, and we were put in a completely different room. I had never been in this room before, so I've now been there 3 times, eaten in 3 different rooms. And we had our table right under prayer flags. I don't know if these were prayer flags that they brought back or if they were original prayer flags that Imagineering was putting together for different prototypes of the land, but they were right over our table. We were back in the corner, right on a window, so we were looking out at Discovery River, I believe is what it's called, the water that goes around Discovery Island. This restaurant is so beautiful on the inside, and we were kind of in a hurry, so we didn't get to explore it as much as maybe we would have liked, but it is really next level as far as immersion when you're talking about a restaurant. But now we got to talk about the food, because the food was really good. Marisa, what did you get?
So I got the plant-based tacos. It's technically considered an appetizer, but you get 2 tacos, and I thought it was a good amount of food. With what we had done, I was full at the end of the meal. And it was actually my first time ordering something like a plant-based meat derivative product. It was so good. They were just delicious. Oh my gosh. All like the flavors just blended together so perfectly. It was spiced perfectly. It was on like this great corn tortilla that didn't fall apart, which was fantastic. It was so good.
So I also got the plant-based tacos, and I can attest to everything she is saying about them. They are really, really good. I've gotten them all 3 times. What I like to do, because Tiffin's is a signature restaurant and it is priced as such, so I find that mixing and matching the appetizers can be a way to afford, to get more, to try more. This way you're not just getting an entree that is expensive and then you're only getting one flavor palette. So I got the plant-based tacos, which do have an imitation meat. You're not going to be able to tell. If you're usually a meat eater, go for it. You're going to love it. It tastes great. I also got the falafel with like a mint sauce. Now, I do not usually like mint, especially in real foods that aren't desserts. It's very, very light, but it just counteracts the spiciness of the sauce as well, giving your mouth a whole bunch of different flavors and really making you enjoy the taste of the falafel, because anybody who's had falafel knows if you're not spicing it up around it, it can just be really dry and almost tough to eat. This was really good. I've gotten both of those appetizers all 3 times that I've gone to Tiffin's, and I'm just not going to try anything different because if it ain't broke, you know? Before we end this episode, I think we also have to mention our server. Our server was phenomenal. He was able to go through a list. At one point, Marisa had to get back to Magical Express, so we didn't have an unlimited amount of time. So at one point, he was going through the drinks, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, I don't mean to be rude, but neither of us drink, and we're kind of on a time crunch. But he was giving us so much detail on everything. They have drinks that are named after Imagineers, drinks that are named after some of the animals that are at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and he wanted to tell us everything. He definitely had pride in his work.
He was so knowledgeable about everything. It definitely made me wish that we had had more time there. In general, I wish we had had more time there, but you could tell that he's someone where you could ask him anything about the restaurant and he would know. He would have the answer. He'd have the backstory. He would have been a really great guy to just like chat with about different things in the room. I feel like he would have been able to tell us a lot of stories.
If you are looking for that special place to eat, you're going on a week-long vacation to Walt Disney World and you want to have that one fancy meal. There are a lot of places to try. There's Topolino's. That's one that I know a lot of people like to go for fancy. Obviously, there's California Grill at the Contemporary. We could talk about Hollywood Brown Derby, Cinderella's Royal Table, but don't count out Tiffin's. This food is awesome. It's a little more interesting. It's a little more unique. Second to none atmosphere-wise. All of the servers are amazing. The food is great.
Yeah, this was my first trip there. I had never been to Tiffin's before, but it definitely will not be my last. I will be back as soon as I can. It was just absolutely 10 out of 10 on every single aspect, from theming to cleanliness to the food to, our server. Everything there was so cared for, and you could tell that, right when you walk in, you see the care put into everything, and you taste it when you eat your food. Every part of that restaurant was beyond phenomenal, and it was the perfect way to end my trip, I have to say. So thank you for letting me come with you and experience that, because it was absolutely a highlight for me.
I cut out the part of the review where we discussed the bread service because the bread service has changed since that time. Back in 2021, Walt Disney World was trying to return to some semblance of normalcy after everything that had happened in 2020. While they weren't ready for the return of Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, they did do a much more limited attendance Halloween event called Boo Bash. My friend Jillian and I attended one of the dates in August, and we were impressed by how empty it was in Magic Kingdom.
I can't think of the last time I'd been in a park when it was that empty. I'd never done one of these events before, but still, it's still been a very long time since I've seen the park that open, full of space and not people.
The longest wait I had was I did 20 minutes for Peter Pan, and in retrospect, I don't even really know why I did it, but there was some sort of wrestling thing that was happening that was taking Jillian's attention away from the event.
Oh, how dare you! I wanted to do Space Mountain. That's what it was. I wanted to do Space Mountain, and you didn't, so we split up. But yes, that did happen at the same time.
Right. There was some wrestling thing that was happening. Well, we won't get into that. What's the dude's name?
CM Punk. CM Punk.
Okay, there you go. That happened the same day, so she was a little distracted on her phone for a little bit. But the longest wait I had was Peter Pan at 20 minutes. We walked on to Haunted Mansion. We walked on to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I mean, honestly, when we did Big Thunder, we didn't even slow down in the queue.
No.
Like, I think we were like the only people in the queue for a while. We did Pirates. That was essentially, that was actually a walk-on too. That was the first ride we did.
Yeah.
And we just cruised right through that queue.
Yeah,
Every ride was no wait at all, basically. Your wait for Space Mountain, what was that?
It was 10 minutes.
10 minutes for Space Mountain is the equivalent
it was a
of
walk-on.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, Jillian and I talk more about Boo Bash in episode 31, which aired on September 2nd of 2021. One of my main goals with this show has been to build a positive community that is inclusive. That's why I've been thrilled to have become friends with Instagram influencer The Sarah Enigma. Sarah caught my eye with her social media presence and her blog. After being diagnosed with chronic illness, Sarah has tried to be an inspiration to those in similar situations. This is a little bit of my talk with the Sarah Enigma from episode 57, which aired on March 3rd of 2022.
Well, I have been diagnosed with multiple chronic illnesses, and that was a big change for me. And I just decided that someone should know what it's like to have a chronic illness. So I've been posting about that and what it is to have a chronic illness and all the experiences that go along with that, but also like how to travel with chronic illness and showing that you can still live your life. Also, I do recipes that I follow my diet for, and lots of book reviews, and of course, tons and tons of Disney content.
So, as somebody who is very physically active, I run marathons, I do a lot of hiking, and even for me, a day at Walt Disney World or at Universal Orlando Resort can just be so taxing. And one of the things that I love about your content is you go over how to do these theme parks that are so stressful for somebody who maybe can't handle as much as some other people.
Yeah, it's very interesting. In my family, I have lots of chronic illness, but my mom is also physically disabled. Like she can walk, but as you said, the parks are massive. So we always get her a wheelchair so that we can do the parks together. But it's just it's cliche, but Disney's so magical, right? And there's just so much about it that the three of us can enjoy, and it takes away a lot of the stress of vacations because I can eat things and I can do things, and my mom can do a lot of things, and there's just something so perfect about it. You can forget that life is hard and that you can just enjoy while we're there, and it's just so great. And yes, a lot of planning goes into it. We have pages and pages of things, and we have safe food places, and we make sure we like have rests, and obviously we can't do everything in one day. But there's just something, it's so freeing to be able to go to a park that allows people with disabilities to flourish.
Kiki from the YouTube channel That's So Kiki has been on the show a number of times, and earlier this year she had the honor of taking part in the Disney College program. She talked about her experience in episode 91, airing on October 27th of 2022.
Yeah, so I was merchandise at Yacht and Beach Club.
First of all, that is a fantastic resort, so that's really cool that you got to be at Yacht and Beach Club. So what was the experience like? You can obviously get a retail job over the summer almost anywhere, but do you feel that you got a whole lot out of working for Disney, specifically in the merchandising department?
Yes, definitely. I learned so much and I had so much fun, and I was able to work in all kinds of different locations. So I got to experience merchandise everywhere, like parks, resorts, water parks even. So I loved every minute of it.
So what's it like being on the other side of the register? What's it like being on the employment side, even though it was the college program? It wasn't, full employment. You're not there yet. But what was it like seeing the magic from the other side, being the person creating the magic, as opposed to those of us who just get to soak up that magic every time we visit?
Yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. Like being able to create magic for people, that's pretty much what I dreamed of my entire life. So getting to do that, I absolutely love that. Now, of course, there were some not so magical days, but I feel like every day at Disney is at least somewhat magical because you're at Disney. So
not only have I made new friends like the Sarah Enigma and Kiki through the show, but I've reconnected with friends I've had for years. Danielle is one of my oldest friends from my time living in Pennsylvania. Back in January, Danielle was determined to get her daughter a Figment popcorn bucket on the first day of Epcot's International Festival of the Arts. Well, it wasn't looking promising when we first arrived to the park.
No, I think, what was it? By the time we got there, the line was wrapped the whole way back to, where was it? Like
almost test track.
Yeah, almost test track. And there were people like chit-chatting about the line being 6 hours long. And we had been there for an hour and the line hadn't moved.
We were there for about an hour and we did not move at all.
Kaylee had went and played in the playground for a little bit. For a 7-year-old, she was kind of getting a little like, Mom, this line hasn't moved. It's not a big deal. We'll just try another time. When in mommy brain, I'm like, there might not be another time. They might be gone. So we were getting ready to get out of line, and this woman just walks up and hands my daughter a Figment popcorn bucket and tells her to have a magical day. Like, I was stunned. I was like, what's going on?
You can hear all about Danielle's experience with the 2022 version of Festival of the Arts on episode 51, which aired on January 20th of 2022. These past 100 episodes have been so special, and I had originally planned to share even more in this celebration of the first 100 episodes. My friend Scott has been on the show to talk about doing the Every Ride Challenge to raise money for Give Kids the World. Steven from the YouTube channel A Life in the Parks has been on the show. We've talked to my friend Ty from North Carolina, my friend Melinda from Pennsylvania, my friend Amanda from Scotland, and of course, my wife Courtney has been on to do a number of really fun dining reviews over the course of the past 2 years. I can't thank Courtney enough for being so patient with recording dining reviews, dealing with me recording video in the parks, and of course the money that we have put into this project. Courtney is the real hero of this show. My mother has also helped us navigate a lot of different hurdles, including creating the logo. Of course, Sarah Says and Marisa have given up so much time to record episodes. Finally, I want to thank all of you. Especially in the last 6 months, we've really had more success than I ever thought was possible. We raised money for survivors of domestic violence through my pilgrimage in Ireland back in June. I have been asked to be a guest on other podcasts. This has all been possible because of you. Please make sure to subscribe to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Dougherty YouTube channel. We are looking for 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and we are getting so close. If you have friends who you think would like the show, make sure they're subscribed. These first 100 episodes and these first 2 years have just been the beginning for what we hope to accomplish. Be a part of it. I will talk to you again next Thursday, which will also be next year for episode 101. Until then, have a great week and a happy new year.